Welcome to the next episode of The Art of Lifting. So today we have Sanchez. Did you just want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Sanchez Dillon, and I'm the best deadlifter in the world. Simple as that.
Nice, nice,
I
good
know,
start.
I know there's a lot of people that will say certain people have the best deadlift genetics, but I've proven it, right? So that's why we're here.
So one thing I was going to ask you, because anyone that follows my lifting knows that my deadlift is shocking compared to my other two lifts. Do you have any advice for me other than get better genetics?
No, I wouldn't say I was a good deadlifter all the time. I've probably only really got good over the age of 30, really. Um, I'd say to use the accessories. I know it's quite an obvious one, but it definitely does work. Staying consistent with it, right? If you're good at something, don't take it for granted, I suppose. I look around Instagram, I look at a lot of lifters, they take their specialisms for granted. I don't with mine. After every competition, obviously I'll look at it. Depending on what it is, I'll probably not be perfectly happy. But then obviously I'll be setting the next goal. And there's an old saying where it's basically say an old Jamaican proverb that's basically says, "Don't hang your basket higher than you can reach." That basically means don't set a goal so far beyond where you currently are, right? So have small goals, which will help you get to your next overall big goal. Really, that's how I try and do things.
No, I actually really like that. I think that's something I've definitely learned recently, like with my competitions. Like every time I go in, for some reason, I think I'm so much stronger than I am. Where in the last one, I was like, I think my last comp, I expected my numbers to be what I thought they were about 8 months ago. But in that eight
Yeah,
months, I've actually gotten to where I wanted to be rather than just chasing numbers and numbers and numbers. So yeah, I think small little
yeah,
goals over time.
yeah, definitely. It's everybody wants a headline grabbing number, right? Something up in lights like in Hollywood. And like I said, I try not to do that. I try not to get wrapped up in the hype. Try not to take Instagram too serious and that type of stuff, really. And just say, right, okay, at this point in the last prep, where was I? If I'm 5 kg ahead of where I was last time, then there's progress, right?
Yeah,
If you're
100%.
5 kg ahead on each lift, that's 15 kg on your total straight away.
No, 100%. I also noticed your first comp on open powerlifting is 2021. So you haven't been around for too many years. Were you training before you powerlifted?
Yeah, I've always been in the gym. I've just been, your average gym bro, in the shallow realm, training at 4 o'clock in the morning type of thing. Um, Pretty nondescript, really. It was probably only, I want to say, 2019-ish when I started looking at powerlifting. Luke Rogers actually, because I was friends with Luke Rogers anyway from many years ago. So I had him on Facebook, and I was watching his journey into British being a British champion. I think it was 2018 or 2019, become British champion. I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. Something that I could do, but I was, I suppose a lot of people will probably say that what I'm going to say next is I don't think I'm strong enough, right? My gym numbers wasn't where I thought would be good enough to be competitive. And let's face it, there wasn't at that period of time. But I'd say to everybody, don't let that deter you. Obviously, have a plan and try and work towards it. Now, I wanted to compete in 2020, but obviously the world had a great reset. In the Christmas of 2019, I set myself a goal of deadlifting 300 kg in the gym in about 10 weeks. So that would take me to middle of March-ish at the time. Obviously, we didn't know what would happen with the world around March time, but obviously I set the target anyway. And I think my max, bear in mind this was with straps, was about 260, 270 at the time. I thought I was pretty good. I was definitely the best deadlifter in my gym at the time. But obviously to get that extra 30, 35 kg, I thought was a bit of a stretch. But I sat down, wrote it down. I worked it backwards over those 10 or 11 weeks. And when it came to the day, I didn't even pull 300, I pulled 310. I didn't even attempt 300, I just went straight over it. I thought, right, okay. So I was like, okay, yeah, I can pull over 300 now. Right, let's do powerlifting. And then literally the next week, I think the world shut down. So
Good
So then
timing.
it was, yeah, it was good timing, and obviously, it was just obviously push everything back. Obviously, through that period of time, I had no access to gym equipment. I had nothing, not a bar, not a plate, nothing. So I took up jogging. Wasn't very good at that, but it was something to do. So then, obviously, once the world started to unlock again, it was obviously trying to follow a program, just cookie cutter online programs, and to get into powerlifting, try and get my head around the technicalities, like bench pausing as a gym bro. What's bench pausing? That doesn't exist. You just straight away. Squatting to depth. I suppose someone may say I don't really do that now still. Well, I'm definitely much higher then. So yeah, so obviously, I then spent probably, I want to say about 7 months doing that. I then got my coach, Wes Hall, and we then went into the first competition at West Midlands Powerlifting down in Droitwich, which was pretty good. Didn't like it, to be honest with you. Didn't like the rules, didn't like the technicalities, but I liked winning, and that's why I stayed.
Are you still with Wes now? You are, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm still the West now.
Yeah, since the beginning. Yeah, no. Do you enjoy competing? Because I didn't mind Commonwealth, but I don't actually enjoy doing it when I'm there.
Yeah, I enjoy winning, right?
Yeah.
So that So I enjoy winning. I do enjoy the journey. The day can be one of them. I mean, like it depends how harsh the cut is, whether I'm on broad or not. But the day can go up and down. I'm definitely 50-50 on whether I actually enjoy the day or not. But obviously, it's getting the results, getting the records, and getting the win at the end is what obviously gives me the euphoria, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, of course. And it's like one of those things. It's either, if you go into a comp for placing, obviously it's going to drive you to keep going for placing. Or if you're maybe not quite as competitive, if you get a PB on your total, you're probably going to want to do it again, because it's that feeling after where like, oh no, but I have progressed. I have one up myself. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose, if you go to a competition and you're close to somebody or somebody online is saying, oh, they're going to whoop you, this and that, then also it gives you a bit more motivation. Or, similarly, when I went to Western Euros last year, I think it was the first time in a couple of years that we set a British team out to Iceland. Western Euros, I believe it's something we're going to do every year now. But there was a hiatus of a couple of years before we kicked off again last year. And I had to come from behind, I think, maybe after the first deadlift, I think I was seventh or something like that. So I definitely had to come behind to win it. In times like that, you got the stress on one side of things, but then you've got the opportunity to win right on the last deadlift, so which obviously gives you the euphoria at the end.
Yeah, no, definitely. Also notice you've been in the 105 since day one. Do you find it hard to stay 105s, or is that just your setting point?
So I will go up eventually. There's still things that I want to do as a 105. I suppose coming to powerlifting, the overall target was making the world's team. Obviously when you start, that seems impossible, right? Let's face it. But obviously I've achieved that now. I was injured going into Worlds, to be honest with you, but I've still got the results, which was the main thing. And now, so we've got British in 4 and a bit weeks' time. Obviously, the target is to win that. So, stay at 105 for now, and let's see what 2025 brings.
Nice. Yeah, obviously, I've not met you in person, but I'm assuming you're pretty tall for a 105.
Yeah, so 6'4", probably the tallest 105 in the country. Active 105. I'm pretty convinced I am. At Worlds, I was probably about a foot taller than everybody else. All the other 105s pretty much. So, so I do stand out, a bit like a giraffe. And I know they do say that obviously weight classes are obviously height classes. I could easily be a 120, just a week eating cake basically. But I think right now, like I said, I've still got a lot to achieve left at 105. I want to go to Worlds again as a 105, win British as a 105, and then after that, then we'll see what happens. I've got no problem putting the extra 15 kg on to get to 120.
Yeah, obviously we'll dive into British in a bit more detail. So with your weight then, are you quite dialed in with your nutrition in order to maintain 105?
Yeah, so I'm quite tight with nutrition all year round, basically. I don't really sway too far, more than say, 4 or 5 kg at the heaviest out of it. So when it comes to competition time, I need around about 6 weeks, really. I can naturally make it back down to 105, sometimes lower, which is what I did at Arnold's, which was a bit of a shock because my scales were off. It was really too heavy, basically. But yes, it's not too much of an issue. But obviously, the countermeasure of that is um, if you want to make weight with water cuts and saunas and that type of stuff, I suppose you could carry a bit more weight through the training blocks, where I try and stay pretty close within a few percent all the way through.
Yeah, no, I do the same. I think it's one of those things where I'm like, I'm aware I have the option to sit heavier and water cut and then gut cut and do that all. But then I'm like, well, if I can just be more strict for a few weeks leading into it and sit just above 84, why not just do that? Also, I was going to ask you, so with the Arnold this year, was it the women's scales were off? Were the men's off or were they fine? Can you remember that?
So for the men's was perfect. It was bang on. Everybody weighed in what they expected to weigh in, apart from me. I was lighter, as I said, due to my own home scales be overreaded by quite a bit. But yeah, a few hours later, I believe the women's scales were off, and it was all under reading massively.
Yeah, no, I remember that being the
had
big
no
thing.
issues for me.
Yeah, no, I remember that being a big thing with the women's because I think there was a rumor going around that Bobby Butters was going to cut down, I think, to the 52s because she weighed in at like 54, and they were like, no, she's still 57. I think she's 57, isn't she? Yeah. Okay, so Arnold's. I mean, I remember your Arnold's performance, so I remember you going out for 411. And I actually watched it back earlier, and I mean, your 391 wasn't. I mean, it was a little bit slow because it's 391, but it wasn't max ever, and that's your best total to date of 873.5 with arguably room in the tank. At World, you 8 for 9? 8 for 9. Yeah,
8 for 9.
Just below. What are you thinking for British? Am I allowed to know details?
With the aim of the game is to win, right? So ultimately, I know I suppose I'm going to lose ground on the subtotal, but obviously the idea is to try and obviously do the best I can, improve on what I did at Arnold's in terms of the subtotal. And then, I know I'm going to always come out last, and then we just pull whatever we need to pull to take it at the end. I don't believe that the last pull will come down to pulling full 412.5 or whatever we need now to get the overall IPF deadlift record. It shouldn't be anywhere near that. But the end game is to win. And then in terms of, crazy totals and things like that, then that can come in the new year.
Yeah, of course. And obviously deadlift is going to be your weapon. You're literally just going to, I assume, just load exactly what you need for the win, whether that's on body weight or whatever. Would probably be a chip. I don't know what the record is. I've got it up somewhere. I'm assuming it's yours.
Yeah, it's my record. It's still 400. It's 400 at the minute.
Yeah. So I guess if you need to chip that, obviously you have the option to. With your training, then obviously the bigger the subtotal, the less Hail Mary of a pull you have to do. How is training going? Do you feel like you focus? Obviously, deadlift is your weapon. Like deadlift is your trusty lift. Do you feel like you put more focus on your subtotal in training, or is it quite even?
Yeah, I'd say I put more focus on squatting, because traditionally squatting is where you build your total from, right? So I do put a lot of focus on that, less than deadlifts. Because by the time we get to the end of the week, probably a little bit fatigued from squats. So I'll just deadlift whatever I feel I can recover from. It's probably still quite high if you looked at all my training videos, but so I think subtotal is important. I've always believed so. Like as I said, I was injured going into Worlds anyway. I had a adductor injury and had shoulder injuries as well. So it was a bit more conservative in Worlds. The fact I even loaded up 295 as an attempt for my first squat, I'm actually surprised, to be honest with you, because I didn't feel great going into Worlds at all. And getting 182.5 bench, it was an absolute miracle, because 3 days before that, when I got off the plane at Worlds, I barely bench 160 as a final session. So I know I can come good when I can have a training block with no issues. And touch wood at the minute, I managed to heal those issues. So we are on track. But we want to keep it as that and keep some of the lifts in the pocket a little bit and not overreach and end up injured again.
Yeah, no, definitely. And considering the fact that World you were injured as well, your subtotal really wasn't far off your best subtotal either.
No, it wasn't.
Apart from missing that squat.
Yeah. So, I mean, in training these Worlds, I squatted squat PB 302.5, which was good again. I was injured, so that went up. It was pretty good. And like I said, in Worlds, obviously my third attempt I missed it on depth. It was very, very close, I think, but it is what it is. So I know, like I said, in terms of making sure I'm a bit clear on the technical side, the strength's always going to be there. Get those 3 squats in, and I know that British should be a bit more simple. Just don't make it hard for myself, right?
Yeah, and I think main competition, Sam Watt is returning, and
Yes.
Ben Pape, who I actually asked Ben to come on my podcast. Bear in mind, I train at Powering Through quite a lot. I see him quite a lot. He instantly just looked at me and went, no. And so I was pretty mad at him. So you're now my favourite 105. I'm rooting for you.
Thank you.
But yeah, I think they're the two that are closest to you. Obviously, the 105s are pretty stacked anyway. But they'll be the 2 closest, I assume, that you're kind of more thinking will be in the battle.
Yes, I mean it's definitely close. With if you look at all our totals for this year, like what less than 10 kg separates us, right? So I suppose if you want to roll the dice, then you can roll the dice. But I just feel that with the 105s currently, we can all push ourselves and obviously beyond what we've done each year. There's there's more on the line. I think in all the competitions that we've each had this year, I think maybe Pape at Euros, he was under a bit of pressure, but Arnold's, I wasn't under any pressure. That's why I did what I did at the end. I think Sam Watt was under pressure when he did the regional earlier in the year. And at Worlds, I was just trying to make lifts, right? So I wasn't really under any pressure per se. So now, obviously, if we're going to have a look for a potential 3-way tie, then this is where all the pressure comes. And as I say, pressure makes diamonds, right?
Hopefully. Hopefully it will. So when it comes to competition, then are you quite driven by any shit talking, watching other people, what their lifts are, or do you kind of just stay in your own little world and just zone out kind of thing?
I mean, I suppose I used to love WWE or WF when I was a kid. So, but I'm not really big on the shit talking, to be honest with you. I had a bit of back and forth last year going into British selections meet, which was fun. But this year I'm not really too bothered about that. I think the focus is obviously is getting your head down and winning. Luckily for me, I've got in Ben Pape and Sam Watt. I believe that those two are still in the same mindset as well. And I know they're going to be training like hell in the gym. It doesn't matter what they show or what they don't show. I know that when I'm in the gym, I know, that they will be doing that final set, that final rep. They won't be missing, right? And in terms of competitors, I know that those two are really, really serious. And ultimately, you've got to be to get to the level. They're a lot more experienced than I have. They've been around a lot longer than I have, and they wouldn't have got these totals without having that mindset. And I can't rest on any laurels at all. I can't say, well, look, I can chip them all on the deadlift at the end. I can't do that if I'm well aware of the subtotal, right? If I'm, giving away 40 kg on the subtotal, that's just not going to happen. So, I need to make sure that obviously I'm on the same mindset and I'm not missing anything in the gym. Every set's completed, every rep's completed, and all the accessories are done.
No, definitely. And I think, it's that knowing that if you slack off and then the result doesn't go your way, you're just going to beat yourself up for that. And like you said as well, you can't be at a high level anymore if you don't take it completely seriously and do every single thing you have to. You have to tick every box if you want to make GB.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's not just about what you do in the gym. You know, you spend a couple of hours in the gym each day, right? Training, but obviously you've got the other side of things, making sure your externals are, are right. You know, no partying, no drinking, no staying up late. You know, all that type of stuff, all the good stuff, all the fun stuff. It's all out the window. And believe you me, I'm doing everything to the book, to the letter, to make sure I have the ability to recover and train as hard as I can, train as harder than we've done before. And you know, the training so far, he's having that trajectory where you know I'm sticking up totals. I'm doing it for reps, which used to be singles. So it's going well, but you know nothing's won at this stage. It's only one under the lights.
Yeah, no, of course. With your training, do you do singles mostly year round on all three, or is it more rep work most of the time? How does your training
No,
look?
I mean, it's funny because again, I think it's important to have the ability to recover. So I've not really been on singles until towards the end of the peak, really through the peak stage, probably 5, 6 weeks out. That's when I'm doing singles, which is about now. Um, but for the rest of the year, not really. No, I believe in building. As I said, you know, if whatever you've done maybe a year ago or 18 months ago for a single, if in a year's time or 8 months' time you can do it for a double, if you do it for a triple, that's clear progress, right? So after competitions, I tend to drop back down. I'm not one of these guys that will like try and take one release from the comp and improve it a week later. I will have that time to recover, time to rest, drop back down to baby numbers, and just build and build and build back up again. Because when the next peak comes round, you should have raised so much. If you look at it as a graph, the area under the curve it should be so much bigger, so much more volume. So your peak, in theory, should be a lot higher. And that's what I've done so far, pretty much, and it's been working thus far.
No, I completely agree with that. And that's kind of what I do and what I do with my clients and stuff as well. It's like if you build that base, then you can go into your peak knowing that there's no reason you're not going to improve on what you've done before. Like you've built your base up so much, especially if you have quite a long time between comps as well. You just need to keep building that base. And also, I think it's how you stay healthier as well. Like, yeah, if your one rep max is crazy high compared to any of your rep work and you just can't do any volume, then there's a weak link somewhere.
Yeah, of course. I mean, after Worlds, I did take some, I want to say time off. It wasn't necessarily time off per se. I was still in the gym, but I had these injuries to heal. I had a ductus to heal and the shoulder to heal. I've been through a couple of physios. I've been through the NHS. I've got to the point of I couldn't bench at all. Um, I've done all the dirty groundwork, all the physio stuff, all those little exercises, all the stuff that everybody hates to do. But I was pretty unbalanced at the time. I think a lot of the injuries started before Arnold's. To be fair, I managed to get myself through Arnold's, but going to World's Prep pretty much after that, especially for bench, it just took too much out. And come out of Worlds and basically couldn't bench at all. Um, Managed to have a bit of a rest. Um I felt like I was coming back, the pain reducing, and as you know, if it's off season, you think, oh, okay, you want to stick up some decent numbers just for bench, and then as it bounds to happen, you get injured again. But obviously, it was off season, so then obviously I knew to just basically strip everything back, find the correct people to work with, and obviously build it back up. And touch wood, I've been fine. But as I said, I'm not really pushing it too much. Just adding a little bit each week and give myself some room to move into the following week and to recover from. I think traditionally, should say historically, I've been pushing bench a bit too hard, benching 4 times a week, and now I bench 3 times. Just giving myself that ability to recover a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think the rhetoric has always just been, oh yeah, you have to bench loads to bench a lot. You have to bench a lot. Basically, you have to bench 4 or 5 days a week. But like, I can't bench that many days a week. My shoulder doesn't like it, and I'm built pretty well for bench. Arguably, as a deadlifter, you're not built the best for bench. So 4 days a week
No,
might not be great.
no, but it was working, and that's the problem. All right, so when something's working, you don't want to change it until something happens. Your rotator cuff goes. Um, But yeah, it was definitely working. But looking back over this year, I just had too much up and down issues with bench. I'd get so far, I'd probably get to like 90%, and then have a setback, and I'm gonna drop again and get back up there, and it just wasn't right. So after Worlds, I really did get everything looked at, and I spent some time and money to get that sorted. And touch wood, it's well on its way to getting back to where it was, definitely.
Good. So do you feel like bench PB in time for British, or
Maybe, yes, maybe. But like I said, the PB might not be an overall in terms of overall load, but it might be like one or two extra reps on the rep range.
yeah, yeah, I guess as well, if it's pain free, that would also be
Yeah,
a big
yeah,
improvement. I think that's one positive with the growth of powerlifting as well, is there's more physios that specialize in powerlifting now. A few years ago, it was impossible to find a physio that actually understood how we train and what we do. So I remember when my back was really bad in like 2020 time, finding a physio that understood how I trained, understood how to brace was impossible. Where I feel like now at least we have some specialist people that we can go to, so we're not throwing quite as much money into it.
yes, and they're definitely out there, right? But I think with anything, you need to always have a second opinion. So that's where you rely on the NHS as well, even the waiting times are horrific. So I always say to everybody, yes, we have our specialist physios, definitely seek their recommendation, but we do have the beautiful NHS as well that you should also lean on as well. And also, because I suppose a lot of the physios may not be anywhere where you live, they may be on the other side of the world, literally. So it's always good to get that in-person evaluation as well, even if it's for the NHS, and they do turn around and say, stop benching for 4 weeks.
Yeah, no, definitely. I do agree. And also quite often, if it depending on what it is, like they'll get you a scan or something as well and just give you that, like you say, in-person check as
Yeah,
well. And just second opinion won't harm you, and you don't have to pay for it with the NHS. Why would you not?
exactly, exactly. So that's how I did that. But as I said, I've been doing my recovery exercises that have been prescribed, and they have done the job. I will say to anybody that's got any injury, especially rotator cuff injuries, it's not going to happen in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. It will take a lot longer than that, and you must carry on with those accessories and those exercises as well to get you back to where you are.
I was
And
actually about
in
to ask
short,
you, do you
yeah,
still do them now that you're pretty much back?
yes, yes. Bench today, to do them today. In terms of also your warm as well, your warm routine, especially for rotator cuffs, you've got to make sure they're warm, especially now the weather's getting much cooler. Spend extra time. My warm routine is that long now. I'm actually trying to do it. So then that's probably like 7 minute rest after doing the warm up routine before I even start benching. So it's damn important, and I'm that focus on it right now to ensure that I am benching with next to no pain.
No, that's good. That's one thing I think literally everyone will slack on is like, you're injured, you'll do your physio and your rehab, and then you get better, and then they're like, oh, I'm fixed, I won't do it anymore. But especially with how frequently powerlifters have to bench, and like you say, like when it gets colder and stuff as well, just keep doing them. You might as well.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Otherwise, definitely advocate of that. Like I said, if you get to the point where I was, where you couldn't bench at all, then you're not going to stop doing the prescribed exercises. Put it that way.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think like people need to also not be scared to pull their training back to recover. I think a lot of juniors especially really struggle with that. They think that they can just train through it, or if they stop training and pushing, then they're just going to end up regressing too much and basically not be competitive anymore. I think you're a prime example that that's not the case.
No, yeah, you can't push for everything. I suppose it's good to learn your body. Within powerlifting, you always going to have aches and pains, especially after a good SBD day. But if it's debilitating, you've got to seek help. You've got to seek the professional help to help that get solved, because ultimately it'll still be there. You'll carry on. You'll end up regressing. And if you really want to turn a corner, then you need to see a specialist to help you do that.
No, I completely agree. So hopefully this is it for the injuries for you. Yeah, hopefully, because I was about to
Hopefully.
say, if obviously you do make GB and you do win or possibly come second at British, depending on what they do with the team for next year, I believe Euros is March, Worlds is June. It's quite a fairly quick turnaround. Do you think you would do all of
Yeah.
those, or?
I don't know. Definitely Worlds. I'm not sure about Euros. Euros will depend on what happens over the next 5 weeks and how I come out at the end of the comp. If I come out good, then why not? But I suppose I've had a taste of the world stage now, so I'd probably put all my eggs in one basket for Worlds.
No, I think it makes sense. Like Worlds is a bigger comp than you. Obviously, Euros is still an amazing achievement, an amazing comp to do. But if you're going to pick one or the other, I think everyone would pick Worlds. I don't know where Worlds is next year.
It's in Germany, I think.
Of course, you've looked up.
Yeah.
No, I have heard that already. Yeah, no. So obviously this is way in the future. Do you think goal for Worlds would literally just be, obviously it'd be placed as high as possible, but kind of just beat what you did this year? Is that kind of how you approach things?
I think going to Worlds was a big eye opener for me. Firstly, the size of everybody, not necessarily just the height, just the stature of the guys at that place. Absolutely incredible physiques. The density, the muscle thickness, and the muscle values are absolutely incredible. So put more size on with as much as possible would definitely be a number one priority. And it's something obviously that we discuss with my coach straight after. And I've started to do that ever so slowly. But yes, I believe coming into next year, into June, there's no reason why I wouldn't be able to have a total good enough to be placing. Definitely.
That, of course.
And that was just being, improving technical proficiency and going in there without any injuries. Because if I got my first squat at Worlds this year, even going injured, I still would have had a total PB. And I've just missed out on depth ever so slightly. So I'd definitely be confident in placing next year.
Yeah, no, definitely. With Worlds this year, then, with it being your first Worlds, I mean, was it your first? No, you've done Western Euros. I said the first international bit, was it? Were there any, other than obviously just noticing this, like the composition of people and the size of people and stuff like that, was there any kind of eye-opening things that maybe you realised that people do and take more seriously at that level versus just like general lifters, or were there any like lessons you took from it apart from just get bigger?
Yeah, so again, I think I was well prepared in terms of what people have told me that I've been to Worlds. So I think the main thing for Worlds is speed, because it was an 8-man flight. So train faster, train harder. So, I detail on board, so I have no issues with the pacing, really. But I suppose in terms of what I took would be, strategy. I suppose, when you're competing at that highest level, you can't look at what everybody else is doing. And to be honest with you, I personally, I didn't even know where I placed until it was all done. But I suppose you can't look too far ahead. Records and that type of stuff, anything can happen. And you've really got to trust in your handlers and in the team to help you get there. If they say, your bench is a bit shaky, we want to take 2.5 kg off because we're sure that you're going to make that. But if you want to, roll the dice on 2.5 kg, we're not sure that you're going to get it, then definitely take their advice on board, because I think I'll probably place 6th, which is probably where I expected to place. But those guys that were ahead of me, the order of them was probably not what I expected. So in that case, it's important, like I said, it's important to listen to your handlers, and then you should be able to maybe get a place higher than maybe you'd expected when you went into. So I think that's the lesson that to be learned.
Are you, when you compete at like a more like a national level or a local level or whatever, are you quite involved in your attempt selection, or do you generally just let your handlers pick anyway?
Yeah, so it's all me at that level. It's definitely all me. I think, as I said, you've got to trust yourself. sometimes you have the ability to if one of your friends has recorded it or whatever, at least to look it back. Generally, I don't. I try and think, right, okay, how did this feel a couple of weeks ago in training? Did it feel harder? Did it feel easier? Did it feel about the same? If it felt harder, then obviously I'm going to probably take a couple of kg off the next attempt. If it felt the same, then I'm going to roll the dice and say, well, look, due to the occasion, the adrenaline, the fact I've actually had pre-workout this time, I'm going to roll the dice and put that number that I've planned for.
Yeah, that's something I actually learned and took away from Commonwealth this year, because normally when I compete, I'm 100% my attempts are my choice. I make all the decisions, and obviously at any international, I had Paul Marsh handling me. He'd take my opinion into consideration, but at the end of the day, he made the calls. And one thing with this one is I didn't watch any lifts back after. Normally, the first thing I do before I put my attempt in is I'll watch my lifts back, and I actually realized this time I was a lot more confident with my jumps by not seeing them and just going by how they felt, rather than thinking it felt okay, watching it back, and then I'd be like, was that a bit slower than how it normally moves, and overthinking it. So sometimes I think removing yourself and just trusting your judgment that you'd have in training, obviously don't change anything on comp anyway. Do you tend to watch your lifts back a lot in training, like your last one before you decide your top set, or?
Oh, I'm absolutely awful at recording myself. Really, really bad. I've got to get better. I've tried nowadays. I do try and record my last warm up when I remember to do it. I always record my top set. I was really bad at even doing that, to be honest with you. But I said once these injuries came, I needed to see, where I was falling down on, in terms of like technique and things like that. So I am recording myself a little bit more. But I'm not one of those people that will, record all my deadlift warm ups, straight to the top. I'm never going to do that. But yeah, I'm just interested in the working sets and the last warm up, especially for squats, really. So I know for bench and deadlift, they tend to fly.
Do you think that's helped you with being able to gauge your top end though, by not actually watching it and just trusting it in the moment and not filming as much?
Yeah. I mean, I think in terms of gauging my top end now, and I would go back to pretty much what I said earlier on, it's about building that curve up and that area under the curve, because my baseline every time after I've done competition is just start a bit higher. Like I said, I could come out of a competition and just do a couple of sets of 8 of 160, 170 kg for squats, right? Nothing miraculous at all. No big numbers there. But I remember after the first couple of comps, that number was like 120. And then a couple of years later, it's 50 kg more. So, as I said, you got to keep going. They're not big numbers, but then if you're starting at that number, where are you going to end up, right? So, I try and gauge it off the speed of my last warm ups, because that's where I tend to lock in. And then obviously, you put another 20 kg or something on top of that for my top set. And that's pretty much how I do it for squats anyway.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Do you think squats are the ones you struggle with the most mentally? Do you have a lift that mentally you aren't as confident with, or that you maybe struggle with a little bit more? Like most people have that one lift that's maybe not their favorite. Is that squats for you, or is it just a case of you're not quite as well built for it, so you have to do more of them?
Yeah, so not as well built for them. I don't have the size so I don't have the quad and the hamstring size, I suppose, to magically hit depth but be slightly high compared to the 120s and the 120 pluses. So that's why I know when I get to 120, I won't really have such a problem, because my legs will just be that much bigger. So you never know. Probably technically it might be slightly higher, but I'd still probably get 3 white lights, right? But I actually do enjoy squats. I actually enjoy, I look at the plan each week. Think, okay, yeah, I'm gonna go do this. But I suppose it's pretty deadlifts, right? So I know if my last deadlift warm up is always pretty much the same. Last warm up is like 320, and then it's whatever after that. Sometimes that 320 doesn't really move too well, and it's always because I tend to take big jumps, anywhere between 50 and 100 kg, depending on time and how I feel. But on the days that if I jump from 220 to 320 and I've maybe my water's been a bit low, I've probably not had as much carbs as I normally have. And that 320 is like, and I've got to put another, 30, 40 kg on top of that for a top set and rep it. That's where I'll start to think to myself, yeah, maybe, maybe not. But I always tend to do it anyway. So, but yeah, it's not squats; it's more deadlifts.
That jump from 220 to 320 is ridiculous. Does that ever feel good?
Yeah, it does sometimes. Most of the time, it does actually. Yeah, most of the time it does.
That is wild.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, I only do that because of time more than anything. Because obviously by that point, I've squatted a bench, I've got a deadlift, and I've still got to do exercises after that as well. So I'm trying to condense as much things as possible. And as I said, I don't want to take out sets and reps of the work. If I can reduce the warm up, then I will, because by this point I'm already pretty hot anyway. So get some stretches in, 100, 120, 220, 320, and then we get that working.
No, that does make sense. So how many days a week are you doing each lift? You bench 3 days, you've said.
Yeah, bench 3 days, squat twice a week, a deadlift once, and then I have a deadlift variation the other day. So whether that's actually deadlifts or stiff leg deadlifts, it's deadlifting twice a week, I suppose.
And how many days a week are you actually training then?
That's 5.
5. So split between 5.
Yeah. So the middle of the week, I'll just bench from that day on the Wednesday. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday for benching, and then condense everything into a 5-day week. Didn't always do that. I used to have Wednesdays off and then do SPDs on Saturdays, but I just thought I want my weekends back. So I do on Friday like that now instead.
No, I get that. So do you have weekends fully off, or do you still do one day at the weekend?
No, so weekends fully off currently.
I think that's nice. I did that leading into Commonwealth, and I actually think mentally it's lovely having a weekend where you don't, obviously you're still on top of your nutrition, you're making sure you're resting, you're not doing anything crazy that's going to affect your recovery, but just having 2 full days of just, I'm not training, I'm actually having a weekend. It's really, I think it helped my recovery so much anyway, just having that full de-stress over the weekend.
Yeah, definitely. You get a full night's sleep on a Friday and Saturday, and you think, okay, I don't have to go to a Saturday morning and go to the gym, right? I think another advantage of doing it this way is, as I said, I used to do Saturday mornings, so that it's not money getting breakfast in, or depending on how busy I am, I'm not even getting breakfast in, right? I'm just getting a shaker before I go to the gym. So therefore, you miss a meal and a half's worth of calories. So I didn't think it was effective or efficient, so I've stopped doing that. But it's one of these things that, as I said, you've got to learn your body, and you'll learn over time, what you can tolerate. And if you just want to prioritise having a weekend to, see your friends, see your family, all that type of stuff, then yeah, go for it. But I treat my training like I treat work. So I work Monday to Friday, train straight after, and then obviously the weekends is free.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about that, like your work schedule. So are you, I assume you're like a 9 to 5 type thing and then train straight after?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I have to say as well, like one thing when people ask me when they're like newer about how I fit it all in and stuff, it's very much just, I think of training almost like work. I don't see it as a negotiable. And I think that's something a lot of people struggle to get their head around. It's like, it's always part of my work week. Like I can't hang out with people at this time on this day because I'm working or because I'm training. And it's almost like there's no leeway with it. And I think that's something people struggle to understand, especially when they're newer.
Yeah, that's right. I suppose when you're new to the sport, you're still living your own life, right? And you don't necessarily know where you're going to end up in the sport. You might have the aspirations and the dreams and the goals, but it will take some time to adjust and to adapt to fit everything in, especially if you're working like a 9 to 5 office job, that type of stuff. You need to adapt. If you be used to going out for drinks after work, that's gone straight to the gym instead. And like I said, people will get there, but it depends on how much enjoyment you have from the training, from the competing, and ultimately the winning.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's a discipline thing at the end of the day, isn't it? Same with literally any sport. I guess if you want to reach certain levels and you want it enough, you'll just make it work. into your life, you'll change your life to fit it in.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it doesn't take over my life, that's for sure, and that's another reason why I suppose I moved it into Monday to Friday only. When I was benching 4 times a week, I had to do a Saturday just because you've got to fit extra days somewhere, right? So I thought, right, okay, we're going to try this benching 3 times a week. This means I can just condense everything into Monday to Friday. It fits perfectly. And I'm definitely a person that doesn't, I'm not powerlifting is not me. Definitely, I'm not. I definitely want to obviously be the best dad I can be, go out and see my friends and stuff like that. So having that clear weekend to do that stuff, even though I'm sore from SBD day, obviously aids mentally recovery as well, not just physical recovery.
Yeah, I think as well, I don't know if you find this, but when I was working full time in a job completely outside of coaching, it was also kind of like a mental break being at work in a way, because you're so distracted from the fact, like, you're not thinking about powerlifting because you're just thinking about normal everyday things. But at that point in time, again, your food's still great, you're still hydrated, you're still looking after yourself, but you're also just not thinking about powerlifting. You're just working like a normal job with normal people around you, and you're not in the athlete mindset.
Yeah, well, yeah. I do. I am quite like that, but my team's profile at work is me in the GB kit. So I do get some people, that are new to the business and, or on the other side of the world saying, "Is that you?" Well, yeah, that's me. So yes, I do get the questions now and again. But yeah, as I said, powerlifting and work can go hand in hand. Like I said, for all those people that work 9 to 5s, basically treat it as work, and you get your weekends to yourself.
Yeah, no, I definitely like that. And I think after British, I'm going to go back to weekends off purely for the fact that I felt like I had a really good mental break at the weekends. I felt more recovered, and it's nice just having the option to spend more time with family and friends outside of the gym on your weekends and just enjoying that. Also curious, so you got into powerlifting at your first comp was when you were 32. I'm
Yeah.
assuming a lot of your friends probably don't powerlift.
No, none of my friends powerlift, and like I said, if it wasn't for Luke Rogers, I probably wouldn't even know what powerlifting was. To be honest with you, it's only because he was on my Facebook, and I just saw him getting a bit bigger and winning stuff. And even at that point, to be honest with you, for many years, still didn't really know what it was. I just knew you had to, squat, bench, and deadlift. And like I said, once I challenged myself to pull 300 kg plus in the gym, that's when I started looking at it, started looking at the rules and all that stuff. So, right, okay, yeah, I think my numbers are good enough to compete. I think at that point, my numbers were somewhere around 200 kg squat. That was probably high. I think I was benching 170, something like that, which is a touch and go. And obviously pulling 310, but with straps. Even at that point, I didn't understand the concept of somebody better hold on to 310 without straps. So I just didn't think it was possible at all, because I had no powerlifting exposure in my circle. I didn't have Instagram, and Facebook was literally just like friends from school, which hadn't even been powerlifting. So I never looked up powerlifting or anything on YouTube, so I didn't really understand it. I just knew that you had to pick up heavy stuff on the floor.
It's so ridiculous that you were essentially just a general gym goer, lifted a bit heavy, and you pulled 310, even with straps. Yeah. Like, the concept of that is so wild.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big strongman fan, really, and obviously I did follow like Eddie Hall's, that type of stuff. I had quite a pretty big injury in 2016. Funny enough, I was deadlifting in the gym. I think I only had a pretty last warm up around like 160, believe it or not. And I remember getting it off the floor. Next thing you knew, I was looking at the ceiling. Don't know what happened. Managed to crawl myself into the car, and that was me bedridden for a week. Didn't deadlift for literally, I think it was about 14 months. Eddie Hall brought the 500 kg world record. And then I've started just watching his videos to improve technique, because clearly I didn't know what I was doing to get injured on 160. And then I basically took it from there, but I was like I said, I wasn't looking at powerlifting. Powerlifting didn't really exist to me. He was just watching Eddie Hall videos on YouTube to try and improve technique. Um, I took what he said, everything he was doing, slightly refined it and got a bit better. But like I said, the turning point was when I wanted to pull over 300 in the gym. And then I basically wrote myself a pseudo program and to get there. And then I did it. And then after that point, it was, yeah, okay, research this powerlifting thing and go and do it.
No, that's really cool. I'm assuming your friends think it's pretty cool that you do it. Have they ever come to watch you or anything? Not that powerlifting means the most fun thing in the world if you don't powerlift.
No, they haven't actually. No, but they will do. They will do for British. They've got no
Nice.
excuse.
Nice. Just send them this clip.
Yeah, I definitely will. Put it in the group chat.
No, I think this year's British as well, like, because it's going to be such a big comp. I think it will be a fun one for anyone to go and watch, because I think they're going to probably have to do 2 platforms, I'd assume, but I feel like there's going to be so much going on that it will be interesting to just go to anyway, even if you don't really follow the sport.
Yeah, I mean, I think technically you can only do 2 platforms to get through the sheer amount of people. I think we're around 350 lifters in total across a few days. However, my concern would be the standard of officiating between the platforms. So that would be my only concern, because I suppose generally you have obviously officials that rotate for a day anyway, but if one platform's more lenient than the other, then that'll create some problems and some backlash.
No, I do completely agree with you, and it's like they've definitely got enough I literally just looked at referee availability. They've got more than enough people volunteering, but you like when you have the refs alternating throughout the day, you still have the same 3 refs for your flight throughout the day, so it keeps it fair. So I don't know how they're going to do it. I am very intrigued, but I think I haven't looked at how many the 105s have now, but I think last time I looked, they were nearly 50.
It's over 50 now.
65 in the 105.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're going to have to, I guess, do 2 platforms. It's 4 days. There's so many lifters.
Yeah, I think the schedule will probably come out in the next week and a half or so. So we'll definitely find out what happens there. And ultimately, it's a good showcase for British powerlifting. We've got is it 6,500 members somewhere around about there. I saw it, and to have 50 plus that have hit the QT and actually want to do it in one weight class alone is absolutely incredible. So it'll definitely be a show. And obviously we have probably I think 40 odd in the 93s as well. So the ladies, the 69s or 76s that have another high number. High 20s,
yeah, 76s have got 35 now. 69s have got 31. I mean, even the 84s. The last British I did last year, I think there was 8 of us. There's 20 this year in the 84s.
Wow.
I think no one wants to miss out just in case, I guess, they don't qualify in the future. But like for me, I don't think I'll struggle to qualify, but I'm literally just doing it because I want to be there and compete with everyone one last time. And I wouldn't want to miss that. Yeah,
it's definitely going to be a great opportunity. Obviously, looking into next year and the new qualifying format, I actually think it's quite good. I always said improve the QT. So my first comp, I got the QT, just about. But I even said to myself, and I was closest to me, I thought maybe it should be higher. I don't think you should be coming into your first comp, not really knowing the rules, and be able to hit the QT. But then obviously, certain people say, "Oh, that's amazing," all that stuff. But well, maybe it should be a bit harder.
I'm actually glad you said that, because I've said the same thing since I started. Like, I'm obviously not as competitive as you as a lifter, but my first ever comp, I didn't know what I was doing. I've coached myself the whole time, but especially then I had no clue about anything. My mum handled me, who also didn't know anything, and I qualified for British. Like, I qualified for British in my first ever comp, and I know that means that my genetic baseline is maybe a bit higher, and I played sports beforehand, and it might sound like a bit of a privileged opinion to have, but I just don't think the QT can be high enough if you can qualify in your first ever comp.
That's right, but I suppose on the other side of the coin would be you don't want to deter people from trying that either. So I think obviously what we've done next year in terms of having kind of like a qualification process of you need to win something. is better because then it creates a different mindset. It creates people to say, right, okay, you've got the ability to win something. You actually need to win something to get to the national level and therefore to the international level. So I'm completely all for it. It's going to create a lot of champions. And ultimately, when it comes to the British team, they'll bring that championship mindset. They'll be like, oh, okay, yes. It's not a case of they've done a couple of regionals, gone to the British, got third, somebody dropped out, so therefore there's Euros or Westerns or whatever. The point is, whoever goes to an international in 2026, they've won something, and they've won something that's recognisable and something worthy. So I'm definitely all for it.
No, I completely agree. I was actually going to ask you your opinion on it all, and I think we kind of have a similar mindset there. And it's also, I think it makes it more like, I think a lot of people with powerlifting, they don't treat it like a sport as such. They kind of just, I don't know, they don't treat it like a competitive sport, a competitive atmosphere. And that's one thing I really like about a lot of the Americans, where a lot of people are like, oh no, they're all really arrogant, they're just full of themselves. I'm like, but do you not think that's why they're so good? Because they have that
Yes.
competitive drive and that competitive mindset that I think a lot of people don't have.
Yes, but talking to America, if you talk to Americans, that especially the ones at a high level, which I did at Worlds, it's a schooling system. The schooling system is completely different to ours in the UK. Those guys do sports seriously from 13 years old. A lot of the high schools have gyms, and they're all in there doing American football, and therefore do some form of weight training, bench and squatting, everything but deadlifting basically due to the injury risk or the perceived injury risk. So they start really early. And by the time they've, become young adults, 17, 18 years old, they're already quite strong. And, if you look at the UK, I didn't start in a gym until I was like 19, 18, really.
The gyms in my area, you aren't even allowed to join until you're at least 16. And I think that's pretty common around the UK.
Yeah, exactly. So there is that. So the Americans definitely have at least legally 3 years ahead of us. And you can do a lot of 3 years, right? I've only been powerlifting just over 3 years.
Yeah, I think especially for the men when they're younger as well, and think about how high their testosterone is naturally when they're like going through like 13 to maybe 18, 19, 20. Like that's obviously going to help them as well.
Yeah, definitely. But as you said, it's having that mindset of, I suppose, if we want to, look at Americans and call them arrogant, then yeah, but they want to win, and they do what they need to try and achieve that. And like I said to you, I'm all for the new qualifying structure being implemented next year, because it will, I suppose, sift through the people that just want to come along and play, and the people that really want to win.
Yeah, it'll drive that competitive mindset, I think, which will only create better lifters, especially like I've seen a few people call it top 14 behavior. Like when they're pushing in training, it's like, oh, this is top 14 behavior. I'm like, I really like that.
I haven't seen that, unfortunately. I'm not really big on reading these captions, but I do like that. But and that does go to show that the guys at the top of are trying to instill that mentality, and some people are taking it on board, and it can only lead to better things, as a sport grows through this country.
Yeah, 100%. It'll be really good to see the difference in totals. I mean, from this year's to last year's British anyway, especially with a little bit of more time in between. But I think from this year's British to next year's, I think we'll see a big jump again in all of the top 14, not even just the first, second, third places.
I think in terms of total, I think totals always go across the board, across the world, simply because exposure. All the various social media apps now, all the juniors that have done absolutely incredible, across all the weight categories at recent junior worlds. It just goes to show that a lot of these kids are probably look at themselves at 16 and say, right, okay, I'm built like insert my favourite junior powerlifter. I want to go and do it. Or I feel I've got the best genetics for bench, whatever. I want to go and try it. And it's just having that cycle going through, which will ultimately raise the totals across the board. And for the people that are already competing, that have been in the sport for several years, we'll see the new kids coming through. So, okay, we need to make sure we want to be, due to obviously all these kids coming across and having absolutely mental totals.
So when you move up to the 120s in a year or two's time, you'll be fighting with a 19, 20-year-old.
Oh yeah, yeah, probably yes, probably yeah. Kids literally half my age. It's actually incredible what they're doing there. But like I said, if it was something that I found at that age, then maybe I would progress like they seem to do.
Yeah, 100%. It's one of those things. It's like everyone wishes they started younger, but then also, if you did start younger, would you have actually found it harder to balance with everything else in your life and actually not had the same balance that you have now?
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, when I was 19, 20, I was at university. I went gym, but I wouldn't have wanted to do powerlifting.
Yeah.
I wanted the university experience, right? Partying every week or every so often. So powerlifting wouldn't have complied with that.
That's one thing I've said. I didn't go to uni and I started powerlifting as soon as I finished sixth form. And part of me is like, I wonder if I went to uni if I'd actually been better because I'd have been part of the buck scene. But then I'm like, I also probably would have just gone out drinking all the time and probably wouldn't have actually liked the gym anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose a lot of it is going to be, a lot of these kids might get burnt out doing it so young, and then once the real world hits in terms of, oh, university's finished, I need to move out my parents' house and go and get a proper job, then and life starts getting difficult with juniors running around, i.e., offspring. They may find it a little bit too hard. So. I mean, if for me, I've already got a child, so already good job.
Yeah.
There was no life changes really. Just go to the gym after work, switch it to the powerlifting routine. I was already in the gym anyway. I just switched to what I was doing. So
I think that's actually something we'll wrap it up in a minute because we've been on the phone for a while. But I think that's something that people kind of forget as well. Like with powerlifting, like if you go to the gym regularly, and which most people do when they decide they want to powerlift, it's not that different. If you can fit in the gym regularly anyway, you don't have to go to the gym for twice as long every single day. Like you can make it fit into what you're already doing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. But I suppose it depends what type of gym you're in. If you're in a commercial pure gym group type of place, then I suppose things may get a little bit more tricky in terms of after 5 o'clock in the evening, everything's packed, all your dumbbells are all flew around the place. And that's what I used to train before work at like 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. And that was all great. But up to the point where you've got to start loading up 6 plates or 260 kg squats at 5 a.m. just on a protein shake in the middle of winter. So yeah, it's you get to a point where you think you definitely need more sleep and more calories to do this. So I've stopped.
Yeah, definitely. One last question, just because you said you've obviously been going to the gym literally since you were at uni, like you've been going for a long time before you ever powerlifted.
Yeah.
Did you play sports growing up as well, or not really?
No sports. Went to the gym at university. I wasn't even good in the gym, to be honest with you. I wasn't doing anything miraculous. I remember I was about probably a year of taking gym seriously at university. Got me for about 70 kg bench to 100 kg, or just over 105. It literally took me that long to bench over 2 plates. So, as I said, I'm not necessarily a genetic freedom or anything like that, but I'm just a person that stayed consistent. I've just carried on. And as I said, that base has just increased over time. Even before I knew powerlifting, and obviously once powerlifting's coming through thing, after each comp, that baseline is slightly higher, drop it back, build up again. And obviously your peak should be quite substantially higher than it was before.
Yeah. So I guess the takeaway from this is to do your accessories, stay consistent, and just look after yourself and stay healthy.
Yeah. Turn up, look after yourself. Don't do anything your mother says you shouldn't.
Brilliant. I think that's probably a good note to end it on. Is there anything else you wanted to say, call out, or anything before we end it?
No, I'll just say, look, everybody's banging on about the 120s, and it will be a show, but remember, the 105s are first. And I'm telling you, me, Pape, and Sam will definitely make it a show.
No, I don't doubt that for a second. I'm looking forward to seeing it. Best of luck with the rest of prep, and thank you for coming on.
All right, thank you. Speak to you soon. Cheers.